Boardroom, you're muted.
How's that,
There we go.
Dory?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. and I'll call to order the Board of Directors special meeting workshop for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Present.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Martin,
Present.
Vice President Griffith, President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. And I'll just note, Vice President Griffith gave advance notice and is excused today. Item 3, we do not have anyone participating remotely. We'll skip that and move on to item 4, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board?
I had a few last minute attendees. Everybody is muted. If you wish to make public comment at this time, please unmute your mic. If you're on a phone only, it's *6. President Sewell, it doesn't appear there's anybody present for public comment.
All right. Thank you.
President Sewell, before we get into the agenda, do you mind if we take the Community Facilities District up? I think the two people that Dory was referencing are probably for that particular item, and I know that the budget is probably going to take most of our discussion time.
Okay. No, that would be fine. So we'll move up item 7. We'll do that first, and that is the Community Facilities District number 2025-1, Skyborn Village of the City of Desert Hot Springs. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell, members of the board. The Joint Community Facilities Agreement is a document that I did hand out to everyone. It's a rather lengthy document, but again, it's just for discussion. It is a workshop and ask any questions. It's been a very long time. Matter of fact, it's been several decades since the last time that we've done a community finance district. And this agreement would be specifically related to the Skyborn project. Just an overview of the kind of facilities we're looking at. There's a couple of different ideas. One is Village 3 specifically, but the entire district, I believe, would be looking at about $64 million. $44 million of $40 million of that would be city improvements, and then $22 million would be our improvements. In reality, the idea is that it would go since there's one landowner, they would approve the facilities district, and then as it got developed, then the property owners would assume some of those debt payments. But from that perspective, I haven't asked Jim Kozak from Skyborn Developers, as well as Michael Bush from Urban Futures, to talk about the facilities district, how it would operate, our relationship with the city, since the city would take the lead. Jim, are you ready to talk about this? Someone on the call? I can't see.
Yes, he is on the call. I've asked him to unmute his mic.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for allowing me to speak at this workshop. The joint facilities that we're talking about here, as General Manager Macy mentioned, is the lead agency is the city, and the city's been doing this for many, many years. In other cities that we have worked in with residential projects, it's very common for the water district to participate along with the city to handle infrastructure improvements from that standpoint. So this is a very common practice. And as Mr. Macy mentioned, it hasn't been done at Mission Springs for quite some time. And with looking as Skyborn is now developing with some excellent growth of new homes and also new residents who are going to be new water district revenues for the district. There's new water zones that have to be opened up that require some significant infrastructure. So it's a way financially for us to be able to invest in that infrastructure that eventually, gets turned over to the water district for future growth for the district as the city continues to expand. And so this is a helpful tool for developers to use, and we appreciate your consideration on this. I know Michael Bush has participated and guided cities and districts through this process, and he may want to add a few items as well, if that's okay, Brian.
Absolutely.
I don't see him on the meeting.
When are we looking to take action on this one?
Jim, when would you like to, when is the city expected to take action, and when would they need our agreement between us and the city in place?
Well, the city is ready to take action immediately, but obviously wanted to make sure the water district was on board with things. So, ideally, at the next board meeting, whenever it can be noticed and properly scheduled, would be our request. That's why we set up this workshop, to be able to have any questions that you might want to answer, answer any questions you might have. And we also have our third-party consultant, DPF and G, which has done probably thousands of these throughout California. That's also available, and they've worked. Incidentally, this is kind of a small group that does these things. So Brian Forbath, who I believe is one of your bond counsels, also has done quite a few of these in other projects. So it's we do have the manpower to assist in any questions that might come up, but ideally it would be at your next board meeting, so the city can move forward, because the city does go dark in the summer, and we'd like to get this done before they go dark. I believe their next city council meeting is after today is June 17th, and I think they may have one in July. So if we could time it, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we're going to lose potentially 60 days, which would be a bit of a problem.
Jim, maybe you can explain how a facilities district works, uh, the funding mechanism, how many properties have to vote, if you will, and then how, when the development happens, how it is then transferred to each of the properties. And also, how much of the development would be impacted by this new district? Would it simply be all 10 villages, or it would just simply be the last 7 that remain?
Well, let me start by saying it would be the last 7 that remain. So it'd be villages 3 through 10. And the beautiful thing about these types of districts, they can be set up to where there's an overall understanding, and then each district, as it gets developed, would get annexed into a district. So it would be, the name of the CFD number dash, 3-4-5 for the corresponding villages. So it's done through bond financing. The development dollars would be paid to the district. Infrastructure would get built, and then as homes are sold in the Department of Real Estate documentation, or what they call the White Report, there's public disclosure about the CFD and all the details of what is involved and how it would be added to the tax bill. MSWD, I don't believe would come up on this because the city is the lead agency, but it might be a sub note in terms of some of the facilities that are being included in the bond offering.
Would that amount stay constant as long as the facility district exists, or would it fluctuate as more people came into the district, meaning that the folks that started the district or first bought homes would have a higher cost than somebody that bought at the very end?
My understanding is that it would fluctuate because we're not selling the bonds all at once. It could it could take us another 6 or 7 years or longer to build out the entire project, depending on what happens in market conditions. But we have a lot of momentum going on right now, and also interest rates change. So therefore, we're trying to time the bond offering at the best economical price possible from an interest rate standpoint. So there would be some variety to the amount, is my understanding. That would be more of of an answer that either Michael Bush or Chris Cole could answer, but that's my understanding.
And Jim, do you know if all 7 of those villages are constructed, how many homes that will be?
There's approximately 17, a little less than 1,700 homes.
And in workshop, if anyone has questions,
Okay.
feel free to.
Yes. You're the developer, correct?
Correct.
How does this benefit you as the developer as opposed to how it benefits the new homeowner?
Well, it enables us to develop the property quicker. It reduces the level of debt that we would have to undertake to build this infrastructure. And this is a common financing tool that's used for large master plan communities where the builder, the developer, we're actually titled more the master developer, and then we sell the villages to home builders who then take on the responsibility of building some of the infrastructure and building the houses. And then they actually participate in the bond offerings, from that standpoint, and they do all the disclosures to their homeowners. So there, it's a very common practice. It does benefit us because it eliminates some of the debt risks that can happen on a property if you're too heavily in debt, and the market stalls, or you could end up getting foreclosed on, and then you have a property sitting dormant for years till bankruptcy proceedings happen. So it's a more cost-effective and more prudent financial way to structure these large infrastructure costs.
Excuse me for interrupting. What you're really saying is it benefits you as the developer because you don't have to come up with that upfront cost to pay for this infrastructure, correct?
We do end up having to front some of it, but it's not a long-term debt obligation for us. So it does provide some financing relief for us.
So then it becomes a long-term debt obligation for the new homeowner, correct?
Correct.
And that goes on to their mortgage rate, which has another ripple effect in a different direction.
Yes.
How does the city and the water district benefit from this?
The number one, it benefits by getting this infrastructure built, which helps local and regional infrastructure to happen faster. Many years ago, before the CFD or Belarus concept came up, those are two interchangeable words that you may have heard in industry jargon. Um, Cities and districts would end up fronting the infrastructure cost for growth to happen, and sometimes using federal funds. All that kind of changed, and so the Belarus concept came up, I don't know, 40 years ago, to be able to find a mechanism in which this could be done more efficiently and effectively. So the benefit is the infrastructure gets done quicker. and it enables more growth to happen for the district and the city. I believe there's some small fees involved that the city would get for administering the CFD since they're the lead agency. I quite honestly don't recall what the joint facilities agreement calls out in terms of what that exact dollar amount is. And I'm not sure if there's any provision for the water district to receive any fee for this, but the bottom line is that the water district would get infrastructure built sooner rather than later.
So let me say that, and I think I speak here for Director Martin and myself. We go to building meetings at the BIA and Desert Valley Building Association. We're very much in favor of making it easier for the developers to come and develop either here in the city or in the county areas. However, it's not the responsibility of the water district to put this infrastructure in for the developers. So what you're asking us to do is to enter into an agreement of some kind here, and I haven't had time to read the 30 pages or so here that we just got handed this morning. But so far, I'm going to say you got a hard sell with me. But I'm going to keep an open mind, listen to everything, read this over. Unfortunately, we have time to do this. I hope we don't rush into a decision on this. Thank you.
Let me just correct one thing is that the district is not building this agreement doesn't call for the district to build the infrastructure. It's a financing mechanism that's used, and the Melrose CFD concept is basically is industry standard throughout the state of California.
So why does the district need to sign off on it then?
Well, it hasn't done one before, and other water districts throughout the state participate on this on an everyday basis. So it is a common practice. This is the first one in a long time, as Brian Mason mentioned.
Other districts do this. It's a common practice, but my question is, why do we need to sign off on it?
Well, it enables the district to assist more development and growth as you grow your regional infrastructure. At virtually no, my understanding is there's really no risk to the district by doing this. Otherwise, districts would not participate in these types of agreements.
General Manager Macy, is there some kind of inexpensive consultant that we can get a third party to give us a little guidance on this?
Yes, we can. We do have bond counsel. Unfortunately, in this particular case, as Mr. Kozak mentioned, they're also working with that. So I don't know if they'd be conflicted out, but we will get into that and we will have somebody available to answer this. In reality, the reason we're listed is because we're one of the benefiting parties. So we would want to say that we acknowledge that the improvements are necessary. They are part of the original agreement with Skyborn, and that if they are built, then we would take ownership and they'll be built to our satisfaction. So in reality, what Jim was saying was 100% accurate. It's a financing mechanism, but we're a part of it because we get the benefit. But again, this is something that hasn't been done in a long time, but a lot of people, or excuse me, a lot of developers are approaching the city about these types of things. There's been other CFDs that have been discussed, just as happens to be the first one being brought to this board.
If I was a developer, I'd go for this too, but here is a director representing our lot owners, property owners, that it seems like a burden's being put onto them, and I'm not sure if this decision would be in the best interest.
Excuse me, if I may clarify that point specifically.
Yes.
This is a full disclosure item before a person buys a home. It's factored into whether they qualify for a loan or not. And so they are provided all the documentation and can choose not to buy the home. You'll see some marketing techniques by other developers where they don't have a CFD or Melrose. and sometimes that's used as a marketing tool. So people that are buying a home have a choice. They have to willingly agree to these terms, otherwise not buy the home. So it's full disclosure. No one's under any pressure to have to do this. But if they want to buy a home in Skyborn that has modern, up-to-date infrastructure and all these new improvements, that's the cost of buying a home in Skyborn. And it has not hurt our sales one bit. And I think that's one of the big advantages Skyborn has in that it's all new infrastructure that's being put in. And all our homes come with a 10-year warranty with under new construction. So there's full disclosure, and the every homeowner that buys a home is given these documents and has full opportunity to review and choose not to participate and not buy the home. So there's no pressure or burden. Typically, the city uses a guideline of 2% as the total cost of that would be the add-on factor for a CFD, which combines city fees and also water district fees that would be paid through the CFD as well as the infrastructure. So it has those provisions in the documentation, so they're seeing what they're paying for. And this is a very common practice throughout the industry.
The 2%, how does that work? Is that the overall cost of 2% added onto the overall cost of the house, or 2% added onto the water bill? Where does that 2%?
No, it doesn't show on the water bill at all. It shows on the property taxes, and it's a guideline of a financial analysis of
So-
2% of the cost of the house.
So it's 2% of the total cost of the house.
Yeah.
And then we have percentage on the realtor is added onto that. Anyways, that starts adding up. Thank you.
Quick question, more for staff, I think. You mentioned 24 million or 22 million that was pretty much towards our infrastructure.
Correct.
I guess what is that going to get us? That will establish a new zone and be able to provide water to all 1,700 of those homes?
Not all 1,700, because that property is so large and it's starting to go up into the hill, if you will. Half a portion of it is in the lower zone, which is where you see most of the construction right now. The other portion is going to be in the higher zone. So yes, it would allow us to go to a higher elevation, basically 1,700. Right now, everything's at 1,530. So it would provide a benefit in allowing us to build at a higher zone and then potentially allow the northwest area to continue to build up into the mountain there. So there is a benefit outside of just this specific location to the district, but obviously the funding and everything and the immediate returns will be specific to Skyborn.
So what you're saying, General Manager Macy, is that there'll be an increase in water pressure up in that area?
There will be an increase in water pressure because we'll be adding another zone. Will the folks at the 1530 zone see an increase in pressure? Probably not, because going into their home, there is a regulator that controls the pressure going in. The area will see a higher pressure, but the homes will not.
Right, that's what I'm referring to with, we discussed the building and
Yep.
stuff, so that will help with the development.
Yes.
Oh.
I know there's been some talk about some development at at Pearson and 62. There's a corner there that has been there and always been asking when can we build. This type of project would help that particular area.
But it'll come if we sign off on it or not, right?
Excuse me?
That'll happen no matter what decision we make. If we say yes or if we say no, that will happen anyhow, correct?
I think to Mr. Kozak's point, this type of funding mechanism would probably accelerate that versus waiting for someone to have more financial resources and the upfront cost, upfront dollars, if you will, to build the infrastructure versus taking those costs and spreading them over 20 years. Whoever pays it for 20 years, whether it's a developer or whether it is the homeowner, that's really the question, if you will, with the financing district.
So that's the most positive thing I've heard so far, is that by allowing this to happen, and that it'll accelerate the growth around Skyborn.
And not to take the words out of Arturo, but if you're looking at 1,700 homes that come in, obviously we'll be able to spread our static costs for all of our water quality testing and all the other things that we do as a water district now. This will provide us the additional capacity that we need to serve this area, but then spread our costs around a bigger population is another benefit.
Director Duff, you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. So if the city's taking the lead, what does that mean as far as, do we have to wait for the city to sign off on everything before we take possession of finished water infrastructure? What does that mean when they say the city takes the lead on this?
Jim, do you want to answer that, or would you like?
Yes.
Right, please.
Yes. The city will do all the administrative work on processing the bonds, you know, and handling all the bond payments that occur, collecting the documentation from the county, payments from the real property. Because again, this CFD fee cost on the tax roll is collected at the county, and then the city will then have it go to make payments on the bond premium. So there's an administrative cost of managing that properly and meeting all the requirements. And also they'll be preparing the bond package with their legal counsel.
And
So
those costs have been fixed into this? Do we know
Yeah.
what those costs are?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but normally it gets all finalized at the when the bond financing happens, but there are legal fees and then those administrative fees. So
I would need to know what those were in detail before able to vote on something like this. Also, curious about whether or not you'd be able to move forward removing the water. Can you move forward with the city on all of their other needs and take the water out of this?
you mean and have the water district not participate?
Correct. Are you able to participate with the city on all of their other infrastructure needs and handle the water like you have on all of the other projects?
Yes, we could, but it'll slow down development of the 1700 zone.
And that's because all of the developers that are approaching you to take over different projects don't have the debt ratio to be able to afford to take on the project, or because it would allow them to stretch their limits in a way to provide the further construction. I'm trying to understand who we're working with here. And if you're
Yes.
not going to be the contractor and you're going to be subdividing those to other contractors, what kind of contractors are you bringing in?
Well, Lennar is a good example. They're the second largest home builder in the country, and we're talking to other home builders that are in the top 10. However, these companies are based on current market conditions, are extremely concerned about costs with all the tariff stuff going on and interest rates still being high. So if they have to assume this additional cost, they'll move on to some other project that has the CFD available to it with the water district and the city. And
So the city then is taking responsibility in a sense and liability. If people don't come and buy, the city has just bought all of this infrastructure. Where do we fall if you are unable to complete the 1,700 homes? What happens to this CFD and what happens to the water district's infrastructure if the builders can't complete because
The-
of these tariffs and things that everyone's afraid of? What happens if the horrible stuff happens?
The nice thing about this is that the bond financing and the tool doesn't happen until after the homes are built. So therefore, there is no risk that there would be a default.
As long as the homes that are built are selling, correct?
No, it's when it's not when they're built, it's when they're sold to
So
a
as
third
long as
party.
the homes sell, then the CFD goes into place? I'm trying to
Yes,
understand. So then this just is a guarantee for when the properties start to sell that you'll get your money back at the sale of the home? And then the city will collect those fees from the property owner through the taxes?
and the bonds are typically 25 or 30 years.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
I
why
will
there's
need,
very, very little risk on this because the homes will have already been sold and occupied, by the third party homeowner.
okay. Well, for staff, I would like to know what those administrative and legal costs of the city are, as well as what our administrative and legal costs would be to participate in something like this, both in the everything goes well and in the everything goes wrong scenarios. And I would also like to know specifically what happens if, because I know as a fairly new homeowner myself, I specifically did not want any properties that had CFDs or Melleroos, and specifically looked for properties that did not, because that would inflate my costs, my insurance, my taxes, etc., which are already pretty high in our city. So my question is, if your properties don't sell because the CFD has been added, what are you going to do then?
We'll have to lower the price till they do sell.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for
Yes.
coming and presenting.
I'm kind of under the impression here and over probably the last 6 months or so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't developers having a hard time getting investors right now to invest in projects?
I don't have any information about anything like that.
So by doing this, it would actually mean more money for the developers to work with to build more homes, correct?
It does, having this financing mechanism does improve the financial analysis for these home builders to be able to move forward. Because very few of them are building in master plan communities that do not have a CFD.
Let's see. Thank you for your time answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Director Martin, did you have any questions? And I guess just the last one, what and if any liability would be on the district if we were to move forward with this?
I don't believe there would be any because we would only take possession once the project, whatever part of that project was complete to our satisfaction. We would do all the inspection. We'd participate in the construction process, the design as well, because most of that we already have established. So from that perspective, the risk would be only when we took possession of it, and then there would be warranties and performance bonds and things of that connected to it. So there's very little risk. One of the questions that was asked about if they don't move forward with us, there is a possibility that the city takes on their infrastructure and then there's another CFD put on there just specifically for the water side. But in the past, there's been some confusion when you see a lot of people named, sometimes CVWD because they're a flood agency. They show up sometimes. So we want to try to minimize that, and the city was going to take that responsibility. So that's why we were sort of under that umbrella. There's other improvements as well. So that's one of the reasons why the city is taking the lead, in addition to the fact that it's a bigger project with them. But we can break it out however you'd like to see it. I guess right now the thought is if we could bring this back in June, but I get the sense from the board that there's a lot more questions that the board may come up with over the next couple of weeks. The 12th is next week. The 16th is the week thereafter. So I guess from that perspective, I'd like to get the board's appetite, if you will, of what the next steps are.
I think we plan on addressing it at this board meeting.
Okay.
And well, hopefully we get a lot of the questions answered next Thursday.
Okay.
And come Monday, if we're not ready, we push to the.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Perfect. Thank you so much.
But anything else further on this today?
No.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I do want to just have a closing comment. I want to thank the board for their willingness to take a look at this. And we will have more of our consultants available at the next board meeting. And if there are any questions that come up, if you could direct them to the general manager, he can forward them on to us and we can have written responses to your questions that might provide some comfort or at least clarification to you before the next board meeting. I think that could be very constructive.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving back to item 5, and that's fiscal year 2025-26 budget review and discussion. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell, members of the board. We did give a short presentation of this before, but it was more connected to the long-range financial plan. Now getting into the actual specifics of this year's budget, I will ask Arturo Sehar, Director of Finance, to give a short presentation and then go over the numbers. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, members of the board. I'll do a presentation of the budgeted numbers that were provided to finance this year for your review, including the operating budget and capital budgets, as well as some of the salary information that you'll see in the back that the board is responsible for approving for the following year. And straight into it, our process begins in March when the managers begin reviewing the numbers for the following year. It is an ongoing process. We look at over 900 operating line items. The board does look at some of this in May when we talk about the employee request, because that does give me the numbers that I need in order to add any employee related expenses. Today, this is where we are at the June workshop, reviewing the budget, going over the numbers, going forward into the budget document presentation at the board study session, and then finally in the board regular meeting in June when the board reviews that. But as you know, the budget is ongoing. Managers throughout the year do review their budgets to make sure that they have enough to cover expenses. And if they don't, they are allowed to transfer between their own budgets as approved by the general manager. We also review it again in January for any major additional items that we need to add or changes in the budget that we did not foresee at the beginning of the year. What is the current environment? As you know, we are still dealing with strict regulations from the state. Right now, one of our biggest capital projects is going to be related to the Chrome 6 expenses.
Mr. Seha, may I interrupt for a moment? Is there a presentation on the screen?
Dory, thank
Is
you.
there-
There is one down here, but we're not sharing the screen. So yes, there's possible that you won't see that. So let us go ahead and share our screen, and that way
Thank you.
the recording can see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you able to see that, Dory?
No, not yet. Now I see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Conservation is still at the top of the list in terms of the state and the mandates that they're doing. As you know, with everything rising cost, you can see that on your own pocketbook. Operational regional wastewater plant is online and will start soon taking on some of the water that's going to be going down there, sewage to clean, and there's going to be increasing costs related to the waste itself. Some of the capital projects that have been delayed that we cannot continue to delay, and then water affordability. If our customers cannot afford to pay their water, what does that mean to the district? The assumptions that were used in this budget were water consumption revenue did increase 1%. The main reason for that is the additional connections that we're making, not related to any increases in our rates. We have 3 new positions. One was approved at mid-year, an administrative assistant position, and the other 2 being added to this budget is a water distribution superintendent, a wastewater treatment plant supervisor. And those costs are directly shown on the budget report. Again, we talked about this at the workshop related to the long-range financial plan. Electric costs are going up, as well as the operational costs for the new regional plant. There was also a class and comp study update that was done in February, as approved by the board, that affected 14 positions, some of them moving one or two rows up in the salary matrix, as well as the 2.6% cost of living adjustment that was approved by the board in May for the employee request, and finally the additional optional holiday. So with all of that taken into consideration and all the major costs going up, we come up with a summary of this year's budget. Let me see if I can get this. These are the totals by department. This usually does not mean a lot to the board. I will go in detail what it means in terms of the revenues and expenses themselves, in terms of salaries, outside costs and things like that. The main thing that this report is showing you is the net income and loss for the district. It is at a loss of $7 million. However, with that said, we do have other funds coming in that make up that difference and then some, primarily through connection fees, property taxes. The interest income and unrealized gains and losses is significant compared to prior years. However, we did take into consideration paying back the $15 million loans to Wells Fargo. And otherwise, this would have been a lot higher if we just continue the trend. The grant for the regional plant is still, there's still one component of it left that we have not received because we have not started that project. So this is basically the remaining amounts left on that grant. What does that mean? We put back all of the non-cash related items, which is the assessment district and depreciation, and we have a cash flow increase to the district of almost $25 million. With that said, $25 million, then we look at all of the amounts that we're gonna have to pay during the year, $15 million for that, the loan with Wells Fargo, the $70 million that we have in capital improvements for 2026, and putting back into the reserves. But the net decrease to reserves is $63.5 million. That is the net. And as John with Raftelis reminded us, a wish list on capital improvements does not make a plan. At some point, we do need to take a look at our capital improvement projects and come up with specific plans as to how we're going to tackle them, when we're going to be addressing them one by one, so that we have a better picture of the true cost to the district every single year. When I presented the monthly capital improvement projects last month, I showed that we had budgeted over $50 million, but so far we've only spent $4 million of that. That is quite a significant difference when we're looking at these numbers. Are there any questions so far? I do show in here the
Just one quick question, if you could scroll up a little bit, just for clarification for lay people. You've put in the 18,175,000 of grant funds, but we have not collected those funds. Those are funds promised to us. So although it's showing 18 million in cash, we do not have 18 million in cash.
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the amount that is left over from what was approved to what we have collected. In the report, I also show the current year compared to prior year by department, and you can see there was a slight increase of $10,000 in terms of the net operating loss over last year. This next report means more to, I believe, to anyone looking at these numbers, because it shows you line by line all the revenues and expenses in terms of what we're used to seeing. So base charge, water consumption, meter installations, there is a $245,000 increase over prior year. And the main difference here are some of the increases in the water consumption. We are seeing a trend that water is being used a bit more by our customers. some of the front footage fees, again, looking at the trends and connections and new properties being connected. And then finally, the main differences here is the investment income and unrealized gains and losses with an increase of roughly $3 million. And then the offset of that is the grants that go down by $3.6 million. In terms of the expenses, the total salaries, employee benefits, and fringe benefits did go up $1.4 million. Again, the main reason for that is those two new positions and half of the other position that had been approved at mid-year. We do have that 2.6 COLA increase and some of the class and comp adjustments that were made, resulting in that difference. Materials and supplies is still a pretty significant number, as well as outside services. They did have a decrease over last year, primarily with some of the major projects we had going on, master plans, and updates that we don't have to do this year. Groundwater replenishment fees, we did get information from DWA. They are also increasing their costs that we have to pass on to the customer. And as you know, the reason why this is a negative is because we do have some water laws that we have to account for in terms of the monies coming in. Utilities increase over last year, 222,000. Director fees, these are the fees paid directly to you as the board for your monthly meetings. That's basically 5 times 150 times 12 months. No, sorry, 250. So that's what that number is. Engineering fees. We did also get a letter from Aqua JPIA. Our property insurance is going up quite significant, and that is the amounts that we're showing. In addition to adding a few of the new buildings that have been completed, like the regional plant. The audit did increase. This has nothing to do with the audit itself. This is the work that has to get done after the audit is complete. We expect a single audit this year with all of the grants that we're getting from the state and federal government. It does require that we do more work. And as much as I wish I could be the one doing some of this work, there's just no time for me to be able to do that. This includes some of the consulting work that we have to do to submit those reports to the state and the federal government as well. The rate study, we're going now towards the end of the costs, reduction of $12,000. Legal fees, we did add a little bit compared to prior year, simply because of some of the outstanding items that we currently have going on. Fixed assets, these are all the plans, updates, website changes, the new GIS programs, which is basically about the same as last year. Depreciation did go down. The main reason for that is we did add the plant, the regional plant last year. And now that number is starting to go down every single year. So that's what's the trend that you're going to see. Interest expense, this is the amounts left over on all of our loans that we still are paying. It did go up because we still are paying the Wells Fargo loan. Standby reports, these are the reports that we have to pay an outside company to help us come up with those amounts that we then turn around and put on the property taxes. That is the cost to the district. Dues and subscriptions did go down. We did have some departments that are consolidating some of the reports we do get. Training and conferences, we are ramping up on, we have several new employees that we need to get trained with CPR and basic other trainings that we have to do every year, sexual harassment, that sort of stuff. I did add $120,000 in debt issuance costs. If the board decides to approve any type of debt or loans, I don't want to have a zero balance and then have to come back and add that later on. This is just looking ahead and making sure that if we, for example, if we extend that loan with Wells Fargo, there'll be some cost associated with that, as well as that CFD discussion we just had. And finally, other expenses. It did go up primarily with the few incidentals here that we have. For example, supplies. We have a couple more employees that we have to buy computer related supplies, and that's basically some of that increase, as well as everything else to maintain the building itself. In terms of the direct revenue and expenses, this is in a nutshell, the numbers. Is there any particular questions that I can go over?
I guess, is there anything that sticks out to you that's kind of alarming between the 2 years?
No, the numbers are the numbers, and basically I'm giving you the trend, as well as some of the other departments that did put in some of the amounts. One thing that is concerning to me, not necessarily in the numbers, is that every year there is significant numbers left over in terms of what is budgeted versus what is actually used. And at some point, I think as a district, we need to do a better job in terms of budgeting for those things. A lot of them are unknown, and therefore we do have to put those amounts in there, but we could do a better job in looking at what we are adding and be realistic. Are we going to get to those projects? Yes or no? And if not, then we shouldn't be adding those amounts that then show up on the budget as additions when we don't even use those funds. But otherwise, everything is standard in terms of what we're seeing. And again, this is based on my understanding of what we're supposed to be adding to the budget and how it's supposed to work, not necessarily that there's anything else that, you know, we're not aware of.
One I'm just kind of curious on, are we just trying to be more realistic on the solar credits? Or was that an over budget last year?
Good question. That is the trend that we're seeing. I believe there is an issue with the maintaining of the solar plant, and therefore it is reducing or how much we're getting, the benefit that we're getting every month. I know that we're looking at going out and hiring another consultant to come and do that cleanup for us, and that might change. But if we don't do anything, this is a trend where we're collecting every month.
When Total Energies filed for bankruptcy, it impacted the maintenance of those facilities. So they're not as efficient as they once were. So Arturo rightfully so put that into this budget. Danny is working with our consultant, Kenwood Energies, to come up with an RFP to set up a maintenance agreement. The first year that maintenance agreement will have all the necessary repairs to get it back to what we would consider the best possible return on that investment. So we are working through that. It's just we were dealing with the bankruptcy this fiscal year.
So I have a question, General Manager Macy, even though I've noticed over the last year, 6 months, that not all the solar panels are working correctly. So we weren't getting the same amount of money.
We were not getting the solar credits we normally were because of the lack of maintenance on those particular panels. Yes, you see that, we see, yes, that's something we're working through. And there's also some concerns about what Total Energy had signed up from a contractual perspective, what they were supposed to provide in addition to just the routine maintenance. So working through the legal process, it has delayed our response to get those back in working order. But we are working toward getting that back to 100%.
I'll talk to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Moving on to the capital improvement plan. In summary, we have 15 projects that are set to be completed this year at 3,365,000. Requested additional amounts on existing projects, $8.6 million, and requested additional new capital projects of $28 million. And the combined 28 and the 8 make up the $36 million that we're adding this year in the report. So all of the highlighted items in here, the orange are the ones that are set to complete. The green are the additional to the existing projects. And the rose color is the new requested to be added this year. So this is the number that I was talking about earlier, the $36 million that makes up the new additions, and the 3.3 million is the slotted to be closed this year. Is there any of these that you want to go over in particular? Going down from the top, these are the ones that are scheduled to close: the sewer line encasement at I-10, the preliminary design engineering Horton expansion number 5, the final design Horton expansion number 5. We have the influent pump station and odor control. We have the supplemental environmental project that is now completed. We also have the John Deere and the Monster that were purchased and completed. The telehandler as well, the skip loader, the 2 John Deere tractors, the skip loader as well for 157,000, the bulk machine, and the belt press horizontal screw replacement. And finally, we have the Terra clay ball replacement as well.
Could you go back to page 9, please?
Sure.
Where it says, yes, Chrome 6 compliance study, we spent 200,000. So we're going to spend another 500,000 between now and 2006 for more studies.
It is to complete the to complete the study itself, and it's slated over a 3-year period to be completed. We added to the 200,000 budget. We added 700,000 to make it a 910,000 budget.
I just brought that up because of all the controversy about the Chrome 6 in our water, and that, yeah, we're spending an enormous amount of money here to make sure that.
Well, if you look at the new projects, that number is in here. Chrome 6, the first new item of roughly $27 million that we did add a number here for those upcoming projects.
For Chrome 6, 27
Correct.
million.
Yep.
Okay.
That is the expected cost to actually do some of that work, not necessarily the plan and to be ready for it.
All right, I guess I wanted to bring that up because I feel it's important for our customers to understand that we are spending an enormous amount of money to keep the Chrome 6 under control. Thank you.
Sure. And again, real quick with the additions to existing capital jobs, some of this going to that Chrome 6 compliance, the admin building, updating for current costs of everything. Some of these are basically to just small amounts for admin work that still needs to get completed on these projects to make sure that we stay within budget. We are adding to the city works as we ramp up. That project is getting completed, and we need additional support to get it done, as well as the Palm Springs, West Palm Springs intertie of adding 932,000, and finally the new capital projects being added to this year's report.
Thank you.
Any questions on these? Thank you.
Agree. Thank you.
And from here, basically what staff did submit a 5-year plan, and then thereafter, and for 2025, 2026, we're basically, this is a $70 million we showed earlier, saying what we're planning on spending, and of that, which of it is going to be covered by grants, leaving the net to be paid by the district. And so far for last year, that number as well was $112 million that we said we were going to spend, but we've only spent a little over $21 million. So in summary, basically the operating expenses are over by $7 million, of which is offset by some of the grant and some of the interest investment income. The capital projects, we are adding a significant amount over last year, primarily due to Chrome 6 and a few other minor projects we do need to finish some of these projects out. Is there any other questions that I can answer for you, or any in particular that you want me to go into in terms of those expenses or revenues?
I have some closing comments, but that's not specifically today.
Sure.
I don't know if this would be something for you, Arturo, but in processing, this is the first opportunity we've had to look at all of this. So we're really digesting. So
Sure.
It's not that we don't have questions, it's that we're digesting, right? the first question I guess I want to ask is the concern you have with the capital improvement budget. I think that the staff has used that as kind of like the laundry list of everything possible that needs to be done, right?
Right.
And then you showed the 5-year plan that they submitted. What I see a disconnect in as far as communicating to the board is telling us which projects they earmarked for the first year, which ones were earmarked. And if we could have some sort of a staff designation of 1 through 5, like what are the priorities? This has to get done this year, or we feel this needs to get done this year, next year, et cetera. Because I agree, it's kind of hard to budget when it's the laundry list. You know, I have a laundry list like this at home, everything I wish I could do, but I don't have the money for. And as money continues to get tighter and we have less and less federal funds coming in and the state funds are more and more tapped, I think that we need a real clear picture on what's attainable and what's those wish lists. So maybe if we could kind of find a way, and I'm sure management teams can get together and figure out an easiest, least time consuming way to communicate that to the board before the next time we sit down and talk about this, and then create that wish list that isn't on any of them, that we can still see and see where we can incorporate, but so that it doesn't bog down the important stuff that we need. Danny and Brian and everyone can, Eric and everyone can vote in on that. And that would be a valuable communication to me.
Right.
Thank you.
I guess like kind of along those same lines, I'm assuming since it's presented this way that staff is comfortable with the amount that we have on that capital improvement budget. But would we be more comfortable if there was some things pushed a year or two?
That is one of the reasons why we're looking at the long-range financial plan. We are going to be looking at pushing projects and making sure that we have the financial stewardship to pay for the things that we want to long-term. And is it better to do any bond financing versus paying true cash? One of the projects on this particular screen is the D3 area where we talked about bringing something to the board, but it was not financially responsible for us to move forward. It still shows up as this fiscal year, but we're not moving forward with it under the current situation. We did not get any, we're not in the work plan for the Army Corps. So that project would be the first one that could be easily pushed into future years. So there are some things here that it is a budget and we do have a project. And I think the laundry list analogy is very accurate in that we do keep things on here because we don't want to lose sight of them, but we could be a little bit better in pushing them out in future years because of, especially as much as we rely on grant funding to try to keep our cost as low as we possibly can to our customers. So there are some things in here, and I'm looking at other projects as well that fall in that same category. So yes, we hear the board and we'll do a better job. Wait, I know, wrong words.
Do a good
Yeah,
job.
wrong words.
I just think that it gives more clarity if we know what you guys said was for the first year, second year, third year, and then all of those extras we can kind of keep in that wish list. That's all.
Yeah,
Great work for everyone.
But yes, and that's the nice thing about the columns L through P and even out in the future years where we're showing those now for those types of reasons. And that's why we do a long range financial plan. That's why we do a master plan so we can bring all that together to make sure that we use the best financial resources we can. So there's more in our toolbox than just our reserves.
And then I don't want to get really into the weeds on this, but I think the Chrome 6 one is a huge one that's going to help us determine how much. I'm interested in that number that you showed, 27, I think it was. How close do we feel like that is what we're going to need?
It's not getting too much into the weeds. One of the things, and this is a perfect, that 27 million, the way it shows up now is all in this year. Obviously, that's going to be pushed out. We can't build $27 million because if you look farther up in the budget, we're adding the preliminary engineering costs in there as well. So you have the construction side and the preliminary engineering so we're going to work on the engineering and try to bring that number down as best we can. You also see you see how the well numbers are clustered, if you will.
Mm.
So we're also going to be bringing those wells together for the future aspects of it as well. So there's a lot of different things we're going to look at and how we cluster those wells. And then, of course, some of the initial testing, quarterly testing, did not turn out the way we anticipated, which gave us some additional time on some wells and less on others. So it is still it's a process, but from a budget number and what we know today, that's the number that we'll be moving forward with, and we should split it out accordingly into future years.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is this what our consultant is saying looks like the cost of what he's saying is our best opportunity to correct the situation?
Yes. So when the last presentation he gave, he did break down certain options at each site. Staff has met with him and tried to clarify how we want to cluster some of these wells. For example, there was 2 wells that are pretty far apart that he would like to see us cluster. The cost to bring those wells together, the water main or transmission main between them was almost $6 million. At that cost, it would be cheaper to simply drill a new well at one of the locations and give us a little bit more flexibility. So from that perspective, there is some optimization that we're already doing, but until we start actually doing some designs, we'll continue to refine those numbers. And then the other thing is too, with some of our water quality, we are going to, because of some of the other agencies in the Coachella Valley are going to be out of compliance before we are. The technology is probably going to accelerate much like it did in 15 and 16 with strong base ion exchange, to the point where strong base ion exchange is not the best available technology. So we would expect by the time we go to construction, there may be some cost savings in that. Even though the cost will probably go up for many of the materials, hopefully the technology will be less expensive. So it's a budget number, and we're going to try to split it out and try to reduce that as much as we can. In addition to that, grant funding is also not showing up anywhere in this budget because we're still going through that process as well. And we hope that there is going to be groundwater remediation, not only for Chrome 6, but PFOS and other constituents that don't impact us. But the climate and water bond that went through last year did have groundwater remediation in it. So we're going to be going after grant dollars as well to try to reduce the impact to our customers.
And with groundwater remediation being listed in that, is there any stretch that we can include some of the septic systems that are affecting that water quality? Have we thought about trying that? Or is it clear that it does not include septic removal?
There are other programs that we can go after to try to get some of that clean water. There are other avenues other than that particular fund, but we are continuing to work with our assemblyman, trying to find out exactly what avenues best serve us and try to go through that. Obviously, we have a decent working relationship with DWR. We do have our current M2 project that will be moving forward this fiscal year. So from that perspective, if there's any small government money that's left over, can we add to that and try to capture some of these other projects since we already under contract and add to the project that we have? There's going to be similar to what High Desert did. Once they got their first, then they started getting a second one. We're going to try to follow that same path. So this is the expense side of it. Hopefully we can supplement the revenue side with grant funding.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I want to thank staff for the excellent job of managing our district financially, and particularly to you, Arturo, for putting this all together and being able to explain it in a way that even somebody like me can understand. I really appreciate it, and good work. Thank you.
And did you still have more?
One last thought that I want to leave with the board. A quick cost of to the district in terms of rate paying. When we're looking at these numbers, the number that you're looking at in terms of what our rates are supposed to cover are these operating numbers. As you can see, it's at a loss. And that is what the numbers are going to show when we bring you back the long-range financial plan. This is a quick rate study review in terms of this, how much we're short that we're not covering in the water fund, how much we're not covering in the sewer fund. And so when we come back, you're going to see those numbers. This is a really good clue when going forward, how the district is looking in terms of, are we covering the cost through our rates as we are supposed to, or are we not? And that is a good starting point every year to look at where we are with the rates.
And with that, just to verify, they are also looking at all of the development fees and costs, correct? Because those haven't been updated in like 20, 30 years.
Correct. We are looking at the contract to make sure that that is, and if it's not, they are definitely coming.
Because
back
that's
to-
very important to me. We've been talking about that for 2.5 years, that those rates equally with the regular rates need to be looked at.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Our
you.
last discussion, we brought that up, and they're going to come and do that as well before they finish the report. And that's all I have.
Great job. Thank you. And we have item 6, Aqua Region 9 nominations. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. I provided a handout as it relates to the Region 9 process, if you will, the election timeline. It talks about starting back in February, nominating committees appointed, fast forwarding down to call for candidates, which was in April. And then June 20th is the deadline for completed nomination forms at 5 p.m. So at this point, the deadline, we need the nomination form, a resolution from the board, and then moving that forward. So in reality, where we are today is from a nomination perspective, we will have to bring a resolution to the board at our next board meeting. So it's really up for board discussion whether we want to nominate anyone from this board to participate in Region 9. So with that, any discussion with the board? We don't have to nominate someone, but I know there's been some talk about possibly doing so, but availability and things of that nature are also always an issue. So from that perspective, it's really up to the board's discretion whether to direct staff to put a resolution on the board for a nomination for Region 9.
And would we need the nomination prior to the study session? Or we could do that at the study session?
You can do that at the study session and then we can update the resolution at that time. So it's not something that has to be decided. Very good point. It doesn't have to be decided today, but it will be on the agenda for Thursday as a discussion item, and then we'll bring the resolution if necessary on Monday.
I just think it'd be nice to have the whole board
Okay.
present, but if anyone has discussion today, or questions.
Well, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I would be interested in pursuing a board member position on there. I don't want to interfere with anybody else that's on the board who passionately wants that, but I am willing to proceed with a board member role on there. So
I'll just put out there that I am not interested.
I'm not either, but I would like to know which position you might be interested in.
board member for Region 9,
Board member for Region 9. Yeah, all right then.
definitely not.
'Cause this is specific to just our region, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anything further today? We can discuss more on Thursday, next Thursday. All right. With that, we will move on to item 8, General Manager's comments.
No additional comments at this time.
Thank you. Item 9, Director comments and requests for future agenda items. Director Martin?
No.
No.
Director Duff? And other than just great job to all our staff, that's all I have. And with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.